What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So yesterday we had an epic, highly anticipated super middleweight showdown between David Benavidez and Caleb Plant that was long in the waiting as a unification bout when both guys were still the world champions at super middleweight. But yesterday we got it, and it played out just like I thought, the tale of two halves. In the first half, Caleb Plant was going to be outboxing David Benavidez as he was. And in the second half, the pressure, the aggression, the physical and mental pressure that David Benavidez puts on his opponents was eventually going to break Caleb Plant. And I thought that Caleb Plant was going to get stopped in the 11th round. But that didn't happen. Kudos to Kenny Bayless, who continued to let Caleb Plant excessively hold in this fight. Now Caleb Plant has been hospitalized from the punishment he took from David Benavidez. And David Benavidez is now focused on showdown with DEMETRIUS Andrade in the summertime. DEMETRIUS Andrade has now signed with the PBC. So DEMETRIUS Andrade is a two-division world champion, 32 wins, no losses, no draws, 19 wins by way of knockout. DEMETRIUS Andrade is 35, 6 foot tall with a 74-inch arm reach, and he's a southpaw as well. And that looks like we're going to get Andrade versus David Benavidez in July, possibly. But David Benavidez, he put on a masterclass performance, and they're no longer focused on a Mexican show, an all-Mexican showdown with the four-division world champion, super middleweight undisputed world champion, Saul Canelo Alvarez, whom they are now the WBC mandatory challenger for Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez beat Caleb Plant to become the first undisputed super middleweight world champion, the first Mexican undisputed world champion. So Canelo Alvarez is accomplishing huge things, but he has his schedule already lined up, and they're not focused on him. They're not even focused on two-division world champion, undefeated WBC reigning middleweight world champion Jermall Charlo either, as Jose Benavidez Sr., father, trainer, manager, says that Jermall Charlo is drunk every time they see him, so they're not focused on him either. So it looks like they have a 3-fight deal that includes a fight possibly with Jermall Charlo, and Demetrius Andrade is the most likely of the three. So it's Jermall Charlo, who I mentioned. The other fighter is Demetrius Andrade, who is most likely for July. But there's also another guy that's in the mix, and that's undefeated super middleweight title contender, Cuban superstar boxer, and that's David Morrell Jr., who is 8 wins, no losses, no draws, 7 wins by way of knockout, 25 years of age, 6'1" with a 78-inch arm reach. So David Morrell Jr. is also a strong possibility. He was actually rumored to fight David Benavidez before David Benavidez made this fight with Caleb Plant. So David Morrell Jr. is also a possibility, but I think it's Andrade. It was an epic night of fighting. It lived up to the billing. It lived up to the hype. David Benavidez and Caleb Plant, it played out just how I thought it was going to play out. Caleb Plant, he showed a lot of heart, maybe a little bit too much heart. That's seen Caleb Plant land in the hospital now. Okay, so now Caleb Plant is hospitalized, based off of the injuries he suffered. And I truly believe that if it wasn't for referee Kenny Bayless, that David Benavidez would have stopped Caleb Plant. But there was a lot of excessive holding in this fight. Kenny Bayless was interrupting the fight when they was fighting on the inside. You could see Caleb Plant, he just has issues with stamina in the second half of fights. He's just not durable in the second half of fights for whatever reason, because he looks like a well-conditioned or athlete, right? And in the first half of the fight, he always looks spectacular. He did against David Benavidez last night. He looked good against Canelo Alvarez in their fight. Back in November 2021, he looked great in the first half against Jose Escotiki, dropping him twice and outclassing him and outboxing him. But it's just something in his genetics that just sees him fade in the second half of fights. And in the second half of this fight, he faded and he took a massive punishment. Okay. In the second half of the fight, he was taking big, clean, hard shots. And I think that his heart and his mind wouldn't let him waver simply because of what took place between him and Canelo Alvarez, right? I think that truly frustrated him. I know he regretted it. The worst thing to do in life is live with regret. and the fact that he was unable to continue and he got stopped in the 11th round, he refused to let himself go in the second half of this fight. And as I called it, I predicted that David Benavidez was going to stop Caleb Plant in the 11th round of this fight. And he was well on his way, because in the 10th and 11th round, you can see the punishment and the beating that David Benavidez was putting on Caleb Plant. I thought actually the referee or the corner was going to stop it in the 10th or 11th round. So I was spot on when I said that. But all the excessive holding that was allowed on the part of Caleb Plant just allowed him to survive, because that's what he did. He simply survived. And sometimes more than not, we have to be able to save these fighters from their cells. And that's what his corner didn't do. And that's what the referee didn't do. And that landed Caleb Plant in the hospital. Now, I know he suffered a massive gash over his eye. That was due to an accidental headbutt. But on top of that, the continued targeting in that spot by David Benavidez for the duration of the fight, that didn't help. Okay. His eye was swollen. His nose was bleeding. He just took an absolute beating in the second half of the fight. But this is what I predicted, right? I predicted that in the second half of the fight, Caleb Plant would fade. Now, when it comes to David Benavidez and these other guys, him and Jermall Charlo is a different type of fighter. And I think that David Benavidez, his style is better suited to face a guy like Jermall Charlo, because Jermall Charlo is not a mover. He'll be right there. David Benavidez is not going to have to follow and find Jermall Charlo. His hand speed will come into play, because he can sit down on his hand speed, sit down on his power, and he'll eventually, I believe, especially since Jermall Charlo is not dedicated anymore. He's not locked into the sport of boxing as he once was. He's undefeated. He's still a champion, but he's just not dedicated to the sport of boxing as he once was. So I believe that, that is going to play a major part in that fight. And I think that, I think David Benavidez would stop Jermall Charlo. I think he would beat Jermall Charlo, because he's just simply more dedicated to the sport. Jermall Charlo is now 32 wins, no losses, no draws, 22 wins by way of knockout. He is 33 years of age. He's going to be 33, 6'1" with a 74-inch arm reach. He has not fought since June of 2021, when he fought Juan Monteo, and he won a unanimous decision. But he could have looked better in that fight. And prior to that, he fought Sergey Derevyanchenko. That was September 2020. Then he fought twice in 2022. So in a 4-year span, Jermall Charlo has fought twice in 4 years. Okay. His style, he's more flat-footed. He's a counterpuncher. He has power, but I think the style of David Benavidez would suit David Benavidez, especially with the layoff and the inactivity of Jermall Charlo. And I highly doubt they put Jermall Charlo in the ring with David Benavidez anytime soon because of that. Okay. Now that leads us to Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. I think that Demetrius Andrade has the best chance of beating David Benavidez because of his style. He's a southpaw. He's just as tall as Benavidez. He's just as rangy, but he's a slick fighter like Caleb Plant. But the difference is he doesn't fade in the second half of fights. Demetrius Andrade is not going to fade, and he has more power than Caleb Plant. So the things that Caleb Plant was hitting David Benavidez with, the clean punches, the clean shots, that's going to stop David Benavidez in his tracks, okay? More so than Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant doesn't have a lot of power. Okay, he's active, but Caleb Plant's jab that was, sticking David Benavidez and freezing him in his tracks. Demetrius Andrade jab is much, much harder, much more heavier, and that'll slow him down. That'll slow his attack down. So I think Demetrius Andrade has the best opportunity to beat David Benavidez. And when it comes to David Morrell is a southpaw. He's slick. He's big as well. But I saw flashes that just lets me know that he'll break in the second half if you put pressure on him. Even on the fight he was dominating in his last fight, you put apply pressure and you can see holes in his games, which lets me to believe that the physical and mental pressure that David Benavidez will put on David Morrell, he would beat David Morrell. So I think that the best fight possibly for David Benavidez to possibly lose or would be Demetrius Andrade. And his father said that they have a contract to fight these three guys, David Morrell, Jermall Charlo, and Demetrius Andrade. and they want to return back to the ring in the summertime. So I believe that you'll see Demetrius Andrade versus David Benavidez possibly in July, depending upon how the budget and everything plays out. But I think in July, you'll see Demetrius Andrade versus David Benavidez. And then I think that that's an 80% chance. And then I think the other chances is 20% David Morrell. I don't think there's a chance in the world that you're going to see Jamal Charlo next. So that's just wishing upon a star, in my opinion. So expect to see David Benavidez back in the ring in July or August. And I believe it's going to be against Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, who is now signed with the PBC. And that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.
You're watching Blue Blood Sports TV. Wow.